Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Tropical update number 14 on severe tropical storm Elsa. Elsa has been downgraded from a hurricane as of this morning. Still has winds of 70 miles an hour and still is moving very quickly towards the west-northwest. However, again, that speed is going to significantly slow down over the next 24 hours or so. Moving into the projected forecast and current satellite, we do have several watches and warnings in effect. We see from the satellite, it's not the greatest looking near hurricane strength storm we've seen. We've said this a lot with Elsa. It's really not well organized, and so sure it has a lot of rain with it. Sure it has some heavy winds inside the areas of greater convection, but really nothing too out of the ordinary with this storm at this point. And it's really because of how quickly it's moving towards the west-northwest at this point. Hurricane warnings are still in effect for the south coast of Hispaniola from Port-au-Prince, Haiti to Punta Palenque in the Dominican Republic. That's basically that whole southern coast of Hispaniola, right above where the storm's at right now. Tropical storm warnings remain in effect for the northern coast of Hispaniola from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, northward toward the border with the Dominican Republic, as well as from Punta Palenque to Cabo Engano in the Dominican Republic, eastern Cuba, and Jamaica. Hurricane watch remains in effect for eastern Cuba, despite, again, this storm being downgraded. Again, hurricane force winds are still possible with the storm at 70 miles an hour. Therefore, those watches and warnings remain in effect. Tropical storm watches for the north coast of Hispaniola in the Dominican Republic from Cabo Engano to the border with Haiti, as well as the Cayman Islands and Central Cuba. The next NHC advisory will be at 5 p.m. this evening, and that'll take into account many data from Hurricane Hunter still to come. Our Hurricane Hunter went in earlier this morning, and as we see on its track here, found a relatively weaker Elsa, but still has those very high winds as we see those purples and reds on that flight path there, still indicating that Elsa has some very strong tropical storm force winds, if not potential areas of hurricane force winds, to go with what's not the most impressive pressure readings on the planet either, still above 1,000 millibars. So anyways, we're going to have another storm or another Hurricane Hunter in the storm shortly. It's going to be in there for about 5 hours or so. We'll have an upper level Hurricane Hunter in there in about 2 hours from now, and another Hurricane Hunter will be in the storm at 7 p.m. this evening. So still lots to come, still getting lots of good data from these Hurricane Hunters. So thank you to our friends at NOAA and the United States Air Force. The latest most likely time of arrival for tropical storm force winds brings winds to southwest Florida as early as midday Monday, and then potentially the rest of the southeastern United States as we head into early next week. Rainfall is going to be a big concern as we see 5 to 10 inches isolated to 15 for portions of Cuba, 4 to 8 for southern Hispaniola and Jamaica. We're looking at 3 to 6 inches in the Cayman Islands, 2 to 4 in the Keys in South Florida, 1 to 3 isolated to 5 in Puerto Rico. If we take a look at the map down here in the bottom corner, we can see the watches and warnings in effect. The Cayman Islands are those little area highlighted in yellow there, south of Cuba, north of Jamaica, northwest, I guess, of Jamaica. And you guys can see where all the watches and warnings currently in effect are. There are no storm surge watches or warnings at the moment. However, storm surge will be likely for the United States as this will impact the states. Expect those watches and warnings to be issued tomorrow morning, but both tropical storm watches and storm surge watches tomorrow morning for southern Florida. We're looking at 3 to 5 feet of storm surge for the southern coast of Cuba, which is pretty significant, as well as 2 to 4 feet for southern Hispaniola, that is Haiti and the Dominican Republic, over the next few days. Taking a look at the models, we see the western coast of Florida, southwest Florida, going to be the main event here. The model consensus appears to land where I'm going to be at later this afternoon. So again, we'll have continued coverage live on the ground where this storm is expected to impact probably fairly directly. So that'll be fun to experience. again, it's not going to be anything too crazy according to the latest model intensity outlook. It's going to remain a decent tropical storm for most of its life, perhaps decreasing significantly over Cuba, but it's going to have a little bit of time. Again, it's going to slow down in its speed, and so it's going to have a little bit of time, about a whole day from the time it exits Cuba till the time it enters Florida, and that will allow the storm to potentially regain 10 or 15 miles an hour, especially if it gets down to a mid or low grade tropical storm before making landfall in Florida, potentially as a mid to high range tropical storm is what we're looking at the moment. Again, then it's going to skirt up the southeastern United States coast, which will bring mainly rain is going to be the big concern, as well as, of course, wind and all the other storm surge and impacts that come with that. The GEFS ensembles, we don't have the GEPS on this update because for some reason it's just not coming in. I kind of alluded to that on our last update. It's a little further off the Florida coast as many of the other models are showing at the moment. So again, this isn't a complete set in stone forecast here. You can even see that here on the European. This is the first time I think all the members of the European model have actually continued with Elsa's life. It previously took Elsa over Hispaniola and dissipated it on almost all of the ensemble members. And finally, it's no longer projecting that, bringing a tropical storm into Florida. Although, again, it's anywhere in Florida. It has anywhere from a Miami landfall to the Florida-Alabama border landfall. So again, Florida is the main U.S. target. You can hardly see parts of Haiti, Jamaica, or Cuba on this map here. So all of those areas really need to be paying attention to this storm. Worst case scenario, it hits southwest Florida, moves up Florida, and then parallels the eastern coast, that is Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. And there's a decent chance that happens. The reason that's so bad is the storm really doesn't weaken. It keeps on getting that warm water underneath it and just keeps on bringing more and more rain to the coast. The good news is this isn't like a Harvey event where it's going to sit over the coastline for a while and just dump rain. It's going to be moving as it dumps its rain. But still, it's going to be a significant rain event. The H-Wharf model, again, my favorite hurricane model, brings Elsa down south of the area here. And I don't believe this is actually the latest run of it. So I'll be right back. All right, and I'm back here. This is the actual H-Wharf model. As we see, a much weaker storm than the previous model I showed you. That was the H-Wharf model for yesterday. And this, again, takes Elsa around where its pressure is right now. Over Cuba, weakens relatively significantly, but again, strengthens back into at least a good-sized tropical storm before making landfall in Florida. Moves across Florida, minimal weakening. Again, Florida's basically a swamp, so it's the same as water almost for the most part. There's no mountains, and there's water all around it, even within it. And then it moves up the U.S. East Coast. So that is, I think, a good representation of what's going to happen over here. And of course, the good news is it moves over Cuba for quite some time, which will weaken it very, very significantly. Again, it could still move to the south of Cuba, which would leave the storm relatively unharmed. The big mountains that the storm wants to avoid if it wants to continue to live a very prosperous life are those in far southern Cuba, where my cursor is here, and this little bit of Haiti right here. And there's a good chance it hits both of those, which will serve it a good dose of slowing down in terms of its wind speeds, not only its forward progress. Again, like I said, I'm going to be on the ground beginning this evening. Tropical storm force winds will begin for me around Monday morning at the earliest, probably closer to Monday night. But again, landfall will occur Tuesday morning if it is in Southwest Florida. And I'll continue to have updates as we continue with this storm. Regardless, again, even if you're outside the cone, impacts can be experienced. I'm going to keep on saying that because it keeps on being true. That's it for now. Chris Dixon, InfoWeather, Catholic Media.